Hey, welcome back to the website hacking series. I'm going to explain what we will be covering in this video, and after that, I will give you a quick recap of what we have done so far, what we have covered so far in the course. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about the SQL and the database. This is a really important topic. Okay, uh, I'm going to give you examples so that you will understand what I mean by that. Think about any website you use, like Gmail or Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, uh, or your banking app. They all need to store the information. They need to store information like your username, your password, and your post history, your balance, etc. All of these app needs to store the data somewhere and somehow. This is what the database helps in database store all of these information. Now for the SQL is the language where the web application or the application communicate to the database to deal with the data that is stored in the database. Okay, so by the end of this video you will understand what database actually are and how they are structured, and as well as how SQL work, how the web application and the database, how SQL help us in communicating between the web application and the application and the database between them, right? We will understand all of this with example, practical example, how this work together. And now let me give you a quick overview of where we are in the web hacking series. So right now we are in module 1, which is the foundational module. In that we are covering basic foundational concepts, right? So I have already covered 5 parts, and this right here, the video you are watching, this is part 6 of the module 1. So you already know what we will be covering in this video. Previously I have talked about, in part 1 I have talked about how web pages, how website are made. In part 2 I have talked about the client side and the server side architecture, and in the part 3 I have talked about the HTTP, how your browser and the web server communicates, right? And in part 4 I have talked about the cookies and session management, and in part 5 I have talked about the HTML forms and why they are so important to cover, and their security implication, like why the hackers target them. So if you have not watched the previous video, I will definitely recommend checking them out first, so that you get foundational level concept and understand how everything connects and works. Now for this specific video, I know the database and SQL might look very complicated, but I promise I will make it very easy, and we will cover a step by step. You will understand very easily, and we will also use the example, and as well as we will do the practical as well. So it will helps you to understand easily and quickly. So now let's focus on our main topic. Okay, so first of all, let's understand the database, and after that we will talk about the SQL. SQL is simply the language the website and the database speak. Let's say a website need to take some data from the database or update some data, so it will use the website will use the SQL language. Okay, now let's focus on the database. Once we understand that, we will then move into the SQL, actually how that works. A database is an organized collection of structured data. Simply, if I give you some simple example, a simple example of that will be the library. So library has a lot of books. Let's think of a very big library. It has a lot of books, and all of those books are in a proper format. They are being organized by the librarian who manages the library. So like one category of books will be stored placed somewhere else, another category of books will be stored or placed somewhere else. They are basically in a proper structure format, right? Now similarly, how in library we keep the books in shelves, different shelves. Each category of book is placed in different shelves. Now similar, in technical term, in database we have tables. So each table contains some specific values. Tables in database term is called relation. So we store data in relations. To make it simply, we will just call it tables. Okay, so over here we have this user table, you see right here. I hope you can see that. So what this user table contain is, it contains the ID of each of the student. Each student ID must be different from another. Then we have another column is which is the tone, another is the email. So this user table contain information related to users, their ID, username, email, password, role, and the created it. Now each relation has attributes. Okay, attributes are basically the column. So this is one attribute, this is another attribute, this is another, and also the each table has rows. So rows are called tuples, tuples. But to make it simple, we'll just call it tuples. To make it simple, we'll just call it row. Okay, so each row contains information about each entity, each thing. So right here, this row contains about information about only this specific student or user. So this single table store information about user. Each row represent one user. Yeah, this is what I mean. The table has multiple columns that describe different properties of each user. So over here, we have a database can have many tables. For example, these table, if the like user table store user information, post table store blogs related information, as well as the comments table, separate table which store user comments. Another is the product table which store information related to the products, and another one we have is the order table which store purchase or stores purchase related thing, right? If this example does not make sense, I'm going to give you example of let's take the example of school system. So in school we have students, we have teacher, we have subjects, right? So a student, we create one table for students, another for teachers, another for subjects, another for departments. And like you see right here, there are a lot of tables and we just kind of link them. I will tell you how we link each of the tables separately. Basically, the table we make is based on the entity. Entity are of two types. Entity is something that we store, like, wait, so entity has two types. One is the physical entity, another is the conceptual entity. Physical entity is like, for example, that physical entity means that something that exists in real world. So if we again take the example of school, student are the entity, physical entity that does exist in the real life. Same as the teacher, right? Departments as well, because it has the structure, the building, the structure, so it does exist in real world. So we take them and we create a table based on them. Now we have conceptual entity as well. Conceptual entity means that something that does not exist in real world, but we need to store its information. Like the simplest example I can give you right now is the bank account. So bank account does not physically exist, but we create table of bank account where we store the bank number, its balance, and its expiry date, right? So right here you see, if something has information that must be stored consistently, it can become a table. So consistently mean the system needs to save it permanently. Like for example, the bank account number, bank statement, bank balance, and these kind of stuff. So whatever, if there are some information that we deal with again and again, so we what we do is we create table on that and we store in that. Another example is that enrollment. So even though enrollment is not a physical object, the information is important and must purchase. Like let's say a student enroll in some specific course on some specific date, so we must take store this information somewhere. So we create another separate table like for the conceptual entity. So we create enrollment table and we store these information. So later they are being organized, so later we can retrieve it later, or like get the or modify that, right? Hope that makes sense, the entity specifically. Now we talk about the table. We have table, multiple tables, we can have multiple tables. We talk about the entities. Now let's talk about the attributes. Attribute is simple. Right here you see these column, this column, this column, this one, this one, this one, and this one. These are actually the attributes. This is like a fancy name for columns, and these are the properties. Attributes are basically the properties. Like let's take the example of student again. So student will be the entity, the physical entity, and let's think about what kind of properties or characteristic a student can have. A student can have a student ID, name and roll number, as well as their email, phone number, right? So these are it's the student entity. So we take the attributes and we create separate columns on that. For example, on for id student id, we create one table, one attribute. For username, we create another attribute, another column, same for email and the other things as well, right? So that's attribute. Now attribute, each column, each attribute can have type. Like for example, if we look at again the first column, you see the first attribute, you see we store numbers in that. So it must have a data type of integer, because we are storing the numbers over here. And in the user column, in the user attribute, we are storing name. So it must have a data type that store text, right? So we have some text data types. One is the int, integer numbers. This will be for the student id attribute. This varchar will be for the username. Okay, if we set this type of for any attribute, it can have text up to 255 characters. And if you want to give like for give more limits, so you will use the text type data type. And another we have is the date time data type. It store values like this, date and time. And another data type we have is the boolean. Its value is either true or false. And another we have is the decimal, which just kind of store the numbers with these points, decimals, right? This one is mostly will be used for marks related things or prices, like for products. So what this does is data type enforce make sure what kind of data can be stored. For example, if the student id, the id attribute, id column is int type data type, you cannot store like abc or any text in it, just numbers. Okay, and same is the case for this. If created at this is another column, and its data type is date time, right? This right here, if its data type is this guy, we cannot store something like this, something in January. You will have to specify the specific time. So this prevent the data, invalid data, from being stored in the database, right? Then we covered the attribute. Now hope you understood this. Let's talk about the rows or tuples. So to make it simple, we will just call it tuples. The tuples is again a fancy name for rows. A row is also called tuple. Each row represents one complete record or instance of data. So this right here, we have one row. Okay, so this is one row. What this one row does, it show complete detail for one student. We have the student id, we have the student name, email, and the password, and its role, as well as the created at date. So this relates to the only one person. Shows information about each row, shows information about one student, each student, right? So and the row 2 will show information about another person, another complete record. Each row is independent. When you make a query, when you query the database, you are typically looking for specific rows that match certain condition. It means that when the website is making query to the database, it actually is looking for a specific row so that it can get the data. Let's take the example of a table where the user information, username, user email, user password is stored, and you want to log into that website. So you will enter your credential right on the login page of that website. Once you click on that, the http request will be sent to the server. The server will understand your, will see that you input your username, password. So server will take those username and password and make a SQL query. We will understand that. Okay, so it will create a SQL query out of that information you enter, and it will then check in the data, the table that exists in the database. So it will check if the user name you input is present in the database or no. If it's present, it will then check the password. If the password is correct, it will then get you login. If either of them is wrong, either the password or username, it will give you the error that either the username is incorrect or the password is incorrect, right? So I don't know if that will be in this guide. I have read somewhere that when you enter like let's say you enter the username and the password, so it will give you the error that either your username is incorrect or password. It will not show you exactly that your username is incorrect or password, because if let's say from the hacker point of view, if we understand that let's say hackers just try random username and wrong password, so when it queries the database, it will tell that yep, your username is correct but your password is incorrect. So the hacker will understand, yep, this user exists in the database but the password is wrong. Or same is the case if we do for the, again, if we reverse that, if the user does not exist and the password exists, I mean this does not make sense. The first condition is okay. So that is why for security reason I just show either your username is correct or incorrect or password. It does not show specific that your password is incorrect, right? Hope that makes sense. Now let's talk about the primary key. So primary key is something, this is also, primary key is also an attribute or column that already exists in a table. Like for example, if we look at this, so primary key exists in any can be this, can be this, can be this, or any of these attribute. But what decide which column is the primary key? Let's understand this. Okay, so a primary key is an attribute or a column that uniquely identifies each row. Now, no two can have the same primary key value. So what this means is, let's understand this. Primary key is basically something like any attribute that have the identification power that can identify the whole tuple, the whole row. It will be the primary key. Okay, and it must not be like both two rows, two or three rows cannot have, two rows cannot have the same primary key. No, I mean two rows cannot have the same value. For example, if we this is we have value for this user id 1, and for another we have id 2, we have another, for another we have id 3, so all of them are different. So you see all of them are different. So we can somehow identify this whole row from only this specific attribute. Okay, so if you want to get the information, full information about this admin user, or let's say Sarah user, okay, so we will just, we only need this id attribute, id, this guy right here, to get all this information. So this will be the primary key, right? Let's talk about this more. And the user table id is the primary key. Yep, that's what we talk about. Every user must have a unique ID. This ensures that each user is different and can be referenced uniquely. For example, user ID equal to 1 is John, user ID 2 is Sarah, user ID 3 is admin, right? How the primary keys are used. When you want to find out a specific user, you query by primary key. Yep, so that's what I said. If you want to get information about this user, you'll use the primary key to get the information about that. Where is that? So select, and we will do this, select all. Don't worry, we will talk about this. Right now we are talking about the database. This is something related to the SQL. So SQL, right now we are here, SQL will be something over here. So this will select the full table, user table, right? This mean all, select all from user table, and then where is a condition which checks wherever you see the where, it will add the condition and it will check the rows. So where means find out the id equal to 1, so it will get all of the detail for the row 1 where the id is equal to 1, so it will get this information for this user John, right? To find the row with id 1, which is John, it's the fastest way to find a specific record because the database can optimize searches on the primary key. Characteristic, let's talk about characteristic. Must be unique. Yep, it must be unique. Let's I will talk about that. Must be unique. About this I will talk about this. So primary cannot be empty or null. There is exactly one primary key per table, often auto incremented. This right here must be unique, which means that let's say this user have id 1 and this user have again id 1, so it is kind of conflicting that this id also exists for this guy and also for this guy. So it will cause deflect, it will cause confusion. So it must be different for this row, it for this it will be different, for this user it will be different, right? Simply when you go to school, you have a specific roll number and no other student can have the same roll number as you. So all the student in your class have different roll number. When they are taking the attendance, they just sometimes call by the roll number, like let they say roll number, and the whoever is roll number one, they just say present. So that is like that, right? And another thing we talk about, it cannot be empty slash null. So we have this user right here, it's all detail, and this cannot be empty, because if this is empty and we want to get information about this user, how do we even identify, how do we even get that? So we must it each primary key for each table, if the primary key must not be empty, any value must not be empty, there must be some value, not some value but unique different value from the another one. So that's the primary key. Okay, so we talk about the attributes, the rows, and the primary key. Now let's talk about the foreign key, and after that we will move into the SQL one. Okay, so let's talk about the data foreign key. A foreign key is an attribute, again another column that reference the primary key of another table. It creates a relationship between tables. Example, relating user to post. We have a user table and a post table. So it references the primary key of another table. We have this user table, these are the user ID, right? So if you want to get information about this user, we'll just use this ID attribute, because this is the for the primary key. We just talk about the for primary key. Now we have another table, the post table. So what we will do is we will specify, we will create an attribute as a foreign key that will reference to this table. So right here we have this table, we have again id1, this just kind of reference to the, these are the IDs for the titles, I mean the post. So at id1 we have this specific post and its content is this, and in id2 we have this post, id3 we have this post, and in id4 we have this post. Now this user table is a foreign key which is a reference to this table. So this post right here you see belongs to user id1, which is John. Again we have user id2, which this post are belongs to user id2, which is Sarah. And again we have the id1, user id1, so user id1 is John again. And the fourth one is the user id3, so this post belong to this guy. So it is basically a reference to the another table, reference the primary key of another table. So that's what it means. Notice the user id column in the post table, this is the foreign key because it references the id, id attribute, id column, the primary key in the user table. So over here you see foreign key allows us to connect data across table. Instead of storing John's entire user record in every post, you just store his user ID. So simply it means instead of writing all this detail in this table, we have already this table, so we can just use the primary key of this table, which this is the primary key. Primary key again simply is something that has the identification power, that can identify each row uniquely, right? So this is the primary key, and we use this primary key in another table. This will become the foreign key, and that foreign key will reference to this original table to get the content, to get the data of that. Instead of writing the same all of the same thing over here again, that will be a mess and will be a bit so hard, right? So hope you understood all this. If you have any question, I know I did not get into a lot of very detail into this, but I have these video right here. You see this database prep 1, prep 2, prep 3, prep 4. I have covered all this in very detail. I will make it public soon. Right now these are private. These are the videos I made. I did stream when I was studying for the exam of the database. So I did a stream and learned through it. So I will make them soon public. If you need them right now, let me know in the comments. I will share the link with you, right? So if you have confusion in this what I explained so far, once you watch these video, all of them will be clear, right? Let's talk about the SQL now. Okay, so before starting that, let me give you a quick example. After that, it will be easier for you to understand the way we cover the HTML HTTP language. If you have watched the previous videos, you might know that what we are doing. So in part 3 we talk about the HTTP, which is the language that your browser and the web server communicates in, right? So if you want to access some kind of website page, so the your browser will make HTTP request and send it to the server will understand the HTTP and send back the content of that website. So the language they speak over here is the HTTP language, right? To communicate between the browser and the web server. Now, SQL is another language. SQL is stand for Structured Query Language. Now, this language helps in communicating between these website and the database. Like for example, if a website needs some kind of data uh, to retrieve to get from the database, the website will need to make SQL query. SQL query means a query simply means question. So website will make SQL question and give it to the send it to the database and get the data from the database, right? So the simplest example will be, let's say you go to a login page on a website. Let's assume you already created the account on that website already. So when you go there, they just ask you to enter the username and the password. Now when you enter both of them and click on the login, the HTTP request is sent to the server. The website then the SQL query right to the database to check if the credential you entered is even correct or no, and even exist or no. Like for example, if the account exists or no. If it exists, it then checks the password. If the password is also correct, it then send back the HTTP response to the browser as with the session and the cookie. So that's how it over here it took the data from the database to confirm, yep, this user exists. So SQL, when so over right here you see when a web application needs to store user information, right? Like for example, when you are creating a new account, it needs to store information in the database. So an SQL query will be made for that. Then next is retrieve user data, like get user data, the login example I just gave you, or update user profile. Like for example, you want to update your username, so it will also SQL language will also be used for that. Or also remove, like if you want to delete some old data, or for example if there is account and you want to delete that. So to delete that, there will be a delete option on a website. So when you click on that, it will send the a query, SQL query to the database to saying that I will just simply simplify that. The website will say to the server that, hey, this is the account and I want to delete this information related to this account. So it will just the delete that, right? Now one more thing is that SQL is standardized, which means most databases, these are different databases: MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, Microsoft SQL Service, Oracle, and these are the different database. But the main thing is, the basic thing is, they use the same SQL syntax. This makes the SQL very powerful and widely used. So we'll understand the SQL syntax, and that will, as you see right here, it can be applied to all of these different databases. Okay, So we will understand this. Now before moving to the part one, I'm just going to tell you that we will first of all understand the theory. Once we understand the theory, I have a practical lab. We will also do that, so you understand how this SQL, the database SQL query works. Okay. So now let's talk about the part one. In part one, let's talk about the what kind of problem the SQL actually solves. First of all, so imagine you have a database with a users table containing millions of record for each of the user. Right, the table has columns for ID, their username, password, email, role created at etc. Now you need to answer the question like, what is the password for username John? How many users have the role admin? Show me all the user who register in the last 30 days. What is the email for the user ID with ID 5? Without the SQL queries, without the SQL, we will have to load the entire database that contains billions of records, and we will have to write code, and we will have to search like search through all of that records. For example, if I want to find out the email for the user whose ID is 5, so I will have to search the whole database, the whole record, right? Same is the case if I want to find out the roles for different user. Like for example, specifically I want to find out all the users that have the role admin. So again, I will have to find out like search through all of the records. So that will be extremely inefficient, especially for large databases with million of data, records, right? And this is the exact same problem the SQL solves. With SQL you write a simple query, which we will cover in a moment. Okay, we will write a simple query, and the database engine handles all the searching and filter it for us, right? Now let's talk about the basic concept of SQL query. SQL query is a question you ask the database. Yep, I have told you earlier, SQL query means SQL question. So it is a question that we ask from the database. The database reads your query and return the answer. Example would be, show me all the usernames and email from the user tables. So let's say we have a table, a user table, right? And it has information related to people, users, with the username, user ID, email, and a lot more. So let's assume we want to find want to only get the username and the email for the people, for the user who is present in the user table. So we will make a query like this. I will show you how we will make that. Okay, so we will ask something like this: the database read this query and return exactly that. It will return all the username and email that exists in the user table. Now this is another example. Show me the passwords for username John. So this is only one guy in the users table, and we want to find out the password of that John guy. So we will make a query, and the database will read this and return the John's password. Okay. Now hope you understood this. Now we can move to the next part, the select statement. First of all, let's say we have the database over here, we have the website over here. So we have, assuming we already have some kind of data in the database already. So if this website needs to get some data from the database, how does that even work? How will we even get the data from the database to the website? We'll talk about this. Okay, like retrieving the data, getting the data from the database. The most fundamental SQL operation is select. So select, this term, you see this word, you see, it will help us in um, this and retrieving the data. Select is used to retrieve, to get the data from the database. Select all data from a table, which this means select, it will select. Okay, we will then type like this, everything. This asterisk means select all the columns, and from we will type the from, and then here we will specify the table we want to get the data from. So or it means return all columns and all rows from the user table. This will mean or all this means that. example, if the user table has this data, I hope you can see that the IDs column, the ID column, the username column, the password column, email column, and the role column. So if we make this query to the database, it will send return us all this data. Now we have a security implication over here. If a website barely uses select all things like this without proper validation or access control, anyone who can trigger this can get all of the information from this table, even if they are not allowed to. So this is a massive security vulnerability, and we need to keep that in mind. Okay, we will talk about this later in some other module, but this is just kind of overview. Now this was for the user table to get the data. Whatever data is present in the user table, it will return that. Now specifying the specific column using the select, instead of selecting all columns, no, instead of selecting all the columns, I mean this all of the column in the table, we can select a specific column. So we will not write this, it means all the column. We can select a specific column you need. So what we will do, how we will do this is, we will again use the select operation. There are other operation as well, like insertion, deletion. We will talk about this once we cover the selection. Okay, so we will use the select, and then we will use the select the username column, email column. Okay, so it means select the username column, email column, from where, from the user table. So we will specify the user table as well. What this means is, or it will return only the username and the email columns for all the rows. Okay, it will return something like this. Since we ask for we made a query to the database for only the username and the email, so we will get something like this. We did not ask for password or anything, this is why it's not there. Now similarly, the way we have the select operation, we also have the where clause, the where keyword, the something like predefined function, you can call it. The where clause is how you filter data. It specifies condition that rows must meet to be returned. It is related to the rows. Okay, so let's see this query. Select which will select everything from where, from the user table, where now we are adding this kind of filter option, where this where wherever you see this, where it is, think of it like it is connected to the rows. Okay, these are the rows. Let me go here. So where we use the where, it will add the condition over here. Now we add the where the username is equal to John. What this mean is, select this whole table. Okay, and then we add filter to only give us the row that has the username equal to John. So it will only return this whole data, right? Return all the columns for only one row where username equals John. So this is what it means. It will send all of these column for where the username is John, or whatever we name specify, right? Next, we have comparison operators in where clauses. You can use different comparison operators in where clauses. Now we can use the equal sign to specify the ID kind of thing. The equal, like for example, select everything from user table, where the ID, what the in the ID column, wherever there is ID1, just give us back that. Okay, now hope you understood this right here, and this is kind of the same thing, but here we specify the username, and here we specify where the ID equal to 1. So ID equal to 1 here is John, right? Now let's talk about the not equal. Again, select all from the user table, where role, it's about the role um column now. So role is not equal to admin, so it will give us give us the result, return the result where let's say there are multiple user and there are a lot of different roles, two three kind of roles. One is admin, another is normal user, and another is moderator. So we specify over here where role is not equal to admin, so admin will be skipped, ignored, and the user role and the moderator role will be shown to us, it will be returned, right? Now another operator we have is the greater sign. So select everything from user table where id is greater than 2. So now it will give us return a result back wherever our return rows where id is greater than 2, right? So it will skip completely the id 1 row. Another one we have is the less than. It works the opposite. We can use it like this way. So select everything from user table where created at, this is another column where created at value must be this. So it will tell us that yep, it will return everything that comes that is before this date, like how many user register or created account before the 2023 um, till December, till the December and give us back. So it will return rows created before 2024, right? We can filter out like for the month, last month as well. Now we have the greater than or equal. uh, let's see what this gonna do. Select everything from user table where age must be greater or equal to 18. So we will, like, let's say we have a website and we have age restriction where like when they create the user creates user the accounts, they must specify their age. So let's say there are some people who are 18 plus, one is 18, one is 24, one is 30, and there are some other people as well, like let's say 15, 12, 11. So this greater than and equal sign or equal sign will be like age must be greater or equal to 18. So it will return all of the people who are adults. Now let's talk about the multiple condition with and slash or. We can combine multiple condition using and or. Like for example, we will use the and uh, condition. Select everything from user table where, this is the filter. Okay, hope you understood this one, where username equal to John, and now we are using the condition username must be John as well as the password for John must be this secret 123. So if this is true, it will return the result back. If either condition is false, the row is not returned because we add the condition and condition, and for the end condition both must be true. Now for the or condition, any of them might can be, if either condition is true, the row is returned. So again we have select everything from user where role equal to admin or role equal to moderator. So it will give us all the rows that have the role either admin or moderator. Even if one is true, it will give us back. Okay, so how you understood this is the basic stuff we have studied in the schools. Now combining and or, select everything from user table where username John is equal to John or username equal to Sarah. Now we can we have add the condition. We can either if the row for username equal to John exists in the user column or username equal to Sarah exists, it will return. And okay, so this is all condition, either of them is true, will return a row. And we then add the and condition where role equal to user. So their role must be user, any of them role must be user, so it will then return. Now let's talk about another thing, the like operator. The like operator allows you to search for patterns instead of exact matches. For example, select everything from user where email like. So again we add the filter in the email for the email column, and let's assume we don't know, we just forget the exact username, the email. So what we will do is we will type specify the email column and type the like operator. So like operator, we will specify just the pattern. So let's say we type something like this at gmail.com. So it will find out everything, every user that has the gmail.com, not yahoo.com. It will skip the yahoo.com. Okay, for example, we have this example, john at gmail.com. It is a match because we just specify this pattern right here. You see this guy. Another we have is the Sahara dot Smith. This also matches the pattern. Now this is incorrect. This does not match the pattern. It is yahoo.com, so it will be skipped. Now another one we have is the admin at gmail.com. This also matches. So hope you understood how this like operator can be used. Next, let's talk about the like, other like pattern, this other like operator patterns. So start with, let's select everything from user table where the username like John. So let's say there are multiple users with the name John, or start with the John, like John, Jonathan, and something like that. So, or like their second name. So if you type something like this, the rest is the same, and you type the like and you specify the pattern. So you specify the pattern John, and then the percentage means any character. So after the John, whatever comes, it will give it to return the result back to you, like John, Jonathan, John, Joy, all matches. Now we specify the first keyword and we forget, let's assume we don't know the second word after the first thing. So we will use that, this one, this kind of pattern for that. Now let's say if any mail contains a specific word, so what we're gonna do is, again, we will specify everything from user table where email like this percentage sign and the keyword and then the percentage sign. So in both percentage uh, character, we will specify that keyword. So it will return like john at example.com, admin example.org, test example.com, all matches, because the example is in all of these emails. Right now we can also specify, using the like operator, we can specify the specific length. For example, select everything from user table where username like will have this quotes, and then dash 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 is the number of characters we want to specify. So let's say so we want to find out the in the user name column, all the people whose name is just four characters. So we'll just type four dashes over here, and it will give us the result, like for example John, Mary, Alex. So these are all matches. Now this Jonathan does not match, so it will not return because these are not four characters. It will return the exact character we specified in. Now hope you understood this like pattern, this like operator, this greater sign, these operators on the where filter thing. We also talk about the where filter, and we also talk about the select operator, right? So select operation. Hope you understood this. If you have any question in these, let me know in the comments. Now we can just move to the next part, which is, let's see, the next part is the login query. Now let's take a look at the most critical SQL query in web application, the login query. So when a user logs in with the username and password, the server must check if the user with that password, with that username exists or no. Check if the password is correct or no. Return the user if both matches. So that's the example I gave you at the start of this video. So we'll talk about this basic query now. Again, you see right here, it is the select operation we are using. Remember I told you that we will use the select operation to get the data from the database. Okay, so we are now trying to log in, so this is why we are using the select. Now select everything from users in the user table, assuming we have all of the user detail including username, email, password, and these kind of thing. Now select everything from user table where username equal to John, and here we are using the condition and condition specifically. Username must be John, and the password must be the enter password, right? So the server receive a login request with the user name John and the password secret123, because we just specify these information, we enter these credential. Now the server hash the password. We will I have already explained this in some other video, like in Linux privilege escalation series. If you have not watched and you are interested, you can check that out. So when you enter the password, it just kind of get hashed into gibberish character, and that gibberish character is stored in the database already. So next time when we enter the password again, the plain text password, we enter that the server hash that password and check that current hash password that we enter to the hash password that is stored in the database. So if both matches, it will then say, yep, this password is correct, right? The server runs this query asking, is there a username with username is there a user with username equal to John and password the hash, right? So there are two possibilities. One is user found, the query return the John row. The server knows John exists and the password is correct, right? And you get the login succeeds. Another condition, another possibility is that user not found. So the query returns no row, nothing. It just give you that either your password is incorrect or username is correct, right? So the important thing over here is that the server does not tell the user which one. So what this means is that the person who is trying to log in, let's say I'm trying to log in and I just entered the correct username but incorrect password, it will return nothing. It will give me error, yep, you have entered either the wrong email, wrong username or the password. It just does not mention that your password is specifically incorrect. It just say invalid credential and avoid revealing whether the username exists or no. Just for if an attacker is trying to steal that account, and if they find out that yep, this user exists with this specific username but the password is incorrect, they can just brute force that and tries to get log into that account, right? Now let's talk about the SQL injection problem. Remember how we said the server receive a username and password from the form, from the login form, right? The server then builds the SQL query by inserting this form data. The data we inserted in the login form, it creates an SQL query out of that information that we inserted in the form and send it to the database. So I will just give you a quick overview. We will talk about this later in the SQL injection. Right now we are not discussing these things in detail. So this is will be the username stored in one variable. This will be password that will store in the password variable, and this will be the username we entered in the login form. This will be the password, so it will then store in these variables. Now we are creating a query. Once we enter these, tell the server, the web server will create query, SQL query, so that it can send to the database and check if the user exists or no. So we have again this another variable equal to query, and this is the query. Select everything from user table where username, this variable, whatever the value of this, it will be stored over here, and end condition, okay, and password equal to the password, whatever the password user enter. Now this will be the query. The query is built by inserting a user input directly. It will give us a result. My SQL query equal to, it will kind of give us back the send it, I guess, send it to the database. I don't know, we'll talk about this. But if it find the if it finds out that both exist and is correct, it will say the user found and password is correct, login successful, else otherwise user not found or password is wrong, right? The problem is that the user input is directly inserted into the SQL query without validation. If the user enters a normal email, username and password, that is fine. Now, but if the user enters a malicious SQL code, that code becomes the part of the query. So let's take the example of this SQL injection. um, Attackers enter username admin, this colon or 1 equal to 1. So the query out of that will be made that password, and the user enter, the attacker enter anything in your password, some gibberish stuff. So the query will be like select everything from user table where username is equal to admin, or if the admin does not exist, so the another condition we have is that 1 is equal to 1. So we know that 1 will always be equal to 1. It cannot be 1 equal to 2. So 1 is equal to 1. This condition will always be true. And in password section we just put nothing or some gibberish stuff. the condition the condition is username admin or 101. This means checks if the username equal to admin, or check if 1 equal to 1. The second condition, as I said, will always true. So the condition becomes username equal to admin, find out the account the user with the name admin, or true, just true, right? So we already know this is true, so we'll just call it true. In logic, when you have x or true, x mean the user name you are trying to specify, or true, the result is always true regardless of what x is, because of the or operation condition. I mean, the query return the admin user or the first, or depending on the database, the attacker is logged in as admin without knowing the correct password. So this is just a bit overview. Hope you understood this. Just understand that uh, like in the login form, if it is not validated, the data that we enter is not validated correctly. Normally people enter the correct username and the password, that is fine. But if attacker tries to use the SQL injection or some other login forms, HTML forms attack, uh, if the server is not, if the server is not doing the validating the input, user input, uh, correctly, it can send that malicious code to the database, and the user can get all of the database query. So just understand the overview. We'll talk about this later and also do the practical of this. Now, I told you earlier there are other operation as well other than the select. Let's talk about that. And so let's see where is that. Yep, this is the insert operation. This insert the data into the database. For example, creating, or when you are trying to register the account, right? Another is to update your current information. Another is the delete operation, to delete their account, right? So hope that makes sense. Now what we're gonna do is we will do the practical as I said in the start of the video. Okay, over here you see this is the simulator, the practical lab that we have made. Okay, this is the student table, this is the course table, this is the enrollment table. Okay, now we have some student in the student table. You see right here, the first we have the ID column, another we have is the student column, and another we have is the major column, right? So, and in the course table we have the ID for the each of the course, then the course title column, then the department and the credit hours. And in enrollment we have another table which store information related to the user when they gets enrolled, like in fall session, spring session, right? So something like this information. Now this is the management campus, this school management of the student. Here you see right here, this is the database that the school system created to get information from this to here to this dashboard, right? So this dashboard is getting information from over here. This is the student, again a student table, this is the course table, this is the enrollment table, right? So and this right here, this is where we can make like manually the SQL queries. So what I want to do is that, let's say, let's go over here. Okay, I want to add, this will add the select, this will add the select all from student table, and here we will specify where major equal to mathematics. So what this going to do is it will select every student from the student table, and then it will add the filter based on the measure attribute measure column. For all of the student, it will return all of the student who are doing the mathematics. So let's run this and see this user id to Bob Smith is only doing the mathematics. Let's confirm this by going over here. You see right here only this guy is doing the mathematics. So this is for retrieving the data. Remember I told you we use the select to retrieve the data. Yep. So let's say I want to add another student. So the correct format will be insert into here into we'll specify the table. Okay, so we specify the table. Now in the student table we have a proper format where we have different a lot of columns. So first we have is the email id column, then we have the name, we have the email, we have the major, we have the admission year. So we specify that now we are putting the values into that. So the name, the id will be 7, the name will be this guy, this email will be this, and the major will be biology, and the admission year will be 2025. Now if I run this query, it will add a new student. You see right here one row inserted into students. Let's confirm this from either here. You see right here we have this guy, or here we have this guy. Now we do the select insert. We can also update the table. So we can do something like this. Let's go here and I just want to do so updates operation, and the table is the student table. Okay, so this will be the students table, and set column, this will be the column. Let's specify the column. I will just type the id column, and let's, instead of the id 7, let's type the id 10. Okay, so for the Casey, for this new student, the id will becomes 10 instead of the 7, where column equal to. Okay, so I understood this. Now we have this pattern to update what update the student table. We will set the column id to 10, where we will then specify for which specific row we want to change the id. So right here, let's go here. Okay, I just did that. This right here, you see for Casey, it's right here. Right now it's 0. So I'm just going to go here where id equal to 0, which is the current value of that. So I will just type the 0, and over here I will type the like this. Let's make it 9. Okay, so it will be 9 now. Let's go here and see if it is changed or no. Perfect, it is changed. So we use the update operator operation as well. Now to delete that, what we're gonna do is we can use the delete. Let me copy this pattern. Delete from table student students, where column is the id column. Okay, and where the value is 9, so it will delete that new user. Let's go here first of all, and after that we will see. So it will delete this guy over here. Let's go this and do this. Let's see. Okay, wait, so I'm gonna do like this, and stu de, and perfect. Now it is good. Now let's see if it is deleted or no. Yep, it is deleted. So hope you understood. This is how the database, the queries work. Right now we are doing it manually, and when you enter details in the login page, the web server gets that data in those variables that we talk about, and make SQL query out of that, the way we just did it. Right, for getting the data, it's use the select. For inserting, for adding new information, it use insert. For updating, for modifying the current information, it uses the update. And for deleting, removing any information, it use the delete operation. Okay, so if you want to practice over here, this is the url. I hope this is public, I don't know, and check it out if it is gonna work or no, and I don't know till when this will work. Okay, so let me know if it does not work. Let me know. I will fix it. Okay, hope you understood all of this. If you have any question in any of these, let me know in the comments. Now I think in the next video we'll be moving into module 2. So if you have not watched the previous video, check that out, and after that we will move into the module 2, right? So I will see you in module 2. See you soon.